On. Joe, are you on?
Yeah, but there's a bunch of music in the background.
Bunch. Okay, Josh says it's the intro for the live stream, so once we go live, it'll turn off.
That's our holding music.
Copy that.
Thank you. Thanks for joining remotely, Joe. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Call the budget meeting, the first budget meeting for May 10th, 2023 to order. And there's nothing I need to read, right?
It's the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, okay. I heard a door, so I'm gonna wait for just a second. Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Denise, can we get a roll call, please?
Director Walper,
Here.
Director Martinez, Director Berman,
Here.
Director Johnston, Director Shibahara. Here. Vice Chair Wheeler,
Here.
Chair Rydell,
Here.
Helena Snyder. Here. Jody Bever. Melanie Wagner. Here. Lindsay Park. Here. Carol Kaiser-Worthy. Here. Kendra Perkins. Lori Huntman. Here. We have a quorum.
And let the record show that Director Martinez is here, please. Thank you.
And happy.
All right, thanks everybody for being here. Excited to get this budget rolling. So first things first, we need to elect a presiding officer for the budget process and the budget committee. So do we have any nominations? You're smiling already. Any nominations on who we'd like to, any nominations for presiding officer?
I nominate Melanie Wagner.
I'd like to second that nomination.
Hold on, we're not to seconds yet. I see what you're doing, Lindsay. So we have a nomination for Melanie Wagner. Any other nominations? Okay. Give it just a second here. So we have one nomination. Come on in, Ms. Bever.
Sorry.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we were just nominating presiding officers, so there's one nomination on the table for Melanie Wagner. I will ask one more time, are there any other nominations for presiding officer? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
All right. Next thing, oh, so now it's back to you. Thank you, Melanie, for your service as the presiding officer. And so now I will turn it to you to elect or get nominations for an alternate presiding officer.
Okay, do I have any nominations for the alternate presiding officer? In case we have a second meeting, right?
Yes, you do. I'd like to nominate Helena Schneider, please.
You just wanted to get that in before someone nominated you.
Yeah, Lindsay's awful quick.
I know. I second that.
Any other nominations?
Are there any other nominations for the alternate presiding officer? And hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Okay.
Motion carries.
And we need to also make sure, remember, we have Director Berman virtually, so we need to make sure we hear his
Berman.
audible vote as well, which he did in the last one.
Oh, aye.
All right. Thank you, Director Berman.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, we have on the agenda the budget message, so I will turn that over to Superintendent Carpenter.
Thank you. And as the new presiding officer, do you have a speech that you'd like to?
I do not. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Very happy to be here tonight.
Awesome. Well, an official welcome to a full budget committee, which is just amazing. In my 5 years as the superintendent, I have never seen a full budget committee, which is fantastic. And in my 14 years in the district, I have never seen a full budget committee. And so I just want to thank you on behalf of the Estacada School District for your commitment to ensuring that taxpayer funds is aligned and allocated appropriately to maximize our service to our students and our community. And so very excited today to have a collaborative conversation as we, the Executive Board of Directors and the Budget Committee, as well as the public, gets the first opportunity to take a look at the 23-24 school year budget, and we're excited to share that with you today. This budget is predicated on a 5-year strategic plan, and believe it or not, this is year 5 of that 5-year strategic plan. And our mission, our vision, and our values were established by the Estacada Executive Board of Directors, who were elected by the constituency to prepare this plan. And so inside this plan is really where we have prioritized our budget over the course of the last 5 years. And I'm excited to share with the Budget Committee, as well as the public today, how we're doing in conjunction with that strategic plan. So here is the Estacada School District 2023 scorecard, or ultimately year 5 of 5 in the current strategic plan that we're working through. And I am so proud to share with you today that each and every single one of those green boxes is an outcome or benchmark hit in terms of what we promised the community we said we would do in this strategic plan. We hit those goals 5 years later. Our vision is to be considered a premier school district by the year 23. And I think especially for those of you who have seen the work that we've done in the last 5 years, you will see that we are in fact on track, and the data would prove that we are on that path towards premier. And that is also why we're continuing to see growth in enrollment and excitement inside our community. Just very quickly to take a look at our 5 strategic pillars, which is very important for us to just revisit as we think about our budget. First and foremost is student success. The Estacada School District had a 92% on-time graduation rate last year, its highest in school history. This was a promise that we wanted to make to our community, that we would improve the competitiveness of kids exiting this program through our budgetary priorities, as well as staffing talent and employing talent to work with our kids, and a resilient community who overcame a wildfire, a pandemic, and so many other different things. Our community bonded together in an effort to make our school district successful when it comes to student achievement. We were also focused on being a best place to work environment. Our goal in our employee engagement forum was to score a 4.15 this spring, and we scored a 4.18. And so this should tell you that our employees are proud to say that they work for the Estacada School District. We experienced a 92% retention rate in a field where teacher shortage is vital, and teacher burnout and stress load is as high as it has ever been in its history. So this should tell you that people who are working for Estacada Schools are generally pleased to be a part of this program. Our district customer service, our goal was to maintain a 4.49. We scored a 4.61, and we're very proud of that growth. Again, we want to be service excellence oriented, and this is evidence of our service supporting our families, our employees, and our students. The one area that we have room for growth as we think about our next strategic plan and our budgeting priorities is how we can improve student engagement. We continue to encounter things such as student apathy, escalated behaviors, and different types of social and emotional health issues that schools really have never dealt with before. And so what wraparound services and supports look like is particularly different in how we're trying to educate all students who walk inside our doors. Our goal was to score a 4.08, and our students scored us at a 3.95. So this is an important spot for us as we think about the next 5 years in Estacada. How can we improve our engagement for students here? When it comes to parent satisfaction, this is very important, and I think it's important just to go over this so that our lens is true as we think about looking at each and every single budget priority. So our goal in this strategic plan was to score a 4.05 in parent satisfaction out of 5. This spring, we scored a 4.02, and while we fell short of our overall goal, we have never scored over a 4 in our history of conducting these surveys. And so this tells us that our improvement, our communication, and our trajectory is leading in the right direction. So there's a lot of things we need to keep doing, but there's still some opportunities for us to grow inside of that. But I just wanted to point that a 4.02 is our highest score on record, and that's the parents telling us that what we're doing is in the right path. Student engagement, My School is Clean, scored a 4.09. Our goal was a 4.07, so we hit that mark. We wanted our community, even though these buildings are aging and failing all over the place, in some cases catching on fire. We want to make sure that parents are at least aware that we work our butt off to make sure that that school is clean, the classrooms are ready for learning each and every single day, and this is good evidence of that. Half of the reason why we're here today is because we want to make sure that how we spend each dollar is trustworthy, is transparent, and is believed and has confidence inside of our community. Last fall, we scored a 3.71 out of 5 in terms of the school district really spending its money effectively. And this is not necessarily a misunderstanding that like we're taking the money and going to Vegas to double the general fund. That's not what this score is about. This score is about how we're communicating spending our dollars to our employees and to our community. And so you can see we've grown to a 3.88, exceeding our goal and marking ourselves in green in that spot. And then for 5 years in a row, board, we can be proud that we have not had one finding in our audit, which again is a record for our school district. And most recently, which I think Christina will talk about, we just received a major financial award noted by Oregon last year. Only 11 school districts in Oregon won this award. We're not sure how many this year, but Estacada is one of them. And so we're very, very excited about that. And you all were a part of that budgeting process, most of you last year. And so I want to thank you for an extremely successful budget. And part of the reason why I believe, and this evidence is what I wanted to show you tonight, is our work in terms of budgeting and in alignment with our strategic plan has really anchored our school district of who we want to be and where we want to go different than other school districts in our surrounding areas and in the state. And you'll notice as you read headlines that there are a lot of school districts who are struggling, both financially and with its values of who they are as a school district. This strategic plan has been a true anchor for us in crazy times to remember who we want to be and what we're striving for. And so I'm excited for our school district to present to you today our ideas of what a best-in-class education looks like in Estacada, starting with how we fund it. So I'm going to pass it off now to Christina Irish, our CFO for the school district, and she's going to share with you and answer some great questions that you all have asked to have a better understanding as we move this budget process through our system in an effort to execute and help our kids.
Thank you, Superintendent Carpenter. Excited to present the 2023-24 budget. As you're aware, we did receive this budget. It went live last Wednesday, so it gave you time to review and come up with questions, and I am excited to have the answers to those questions at the end of the presentation. But to start, I'm going to talk about what assumptions we made when we were building this budget. The governor's budget is currently at $9.9 billion for the K through 12 state school fund with the 49-51 split. And this was as of February 22nd, and it has not changed as of today. We are fully funded at Measure 98. We're fully funded in our student investment account, and we're in our third and final year of our ESSER 3, and we just received notice that we received a high school seismic grant, as well as finishing our River Mill seismic grant. Other assumptions we make, we're still a full school year with a 4-day work week with Fridays designated for targeted student support and staff development, or READ days. Our salary schedule step for eligible employees, COLA. Our teachers and unclassified are budgeted at 3%. Again, the teachers are, it is in their contract. The classified, it is an assumption because they are in negotiations right now. And our administrators got a 2% COLA. Health insurance, the teachers and classified are budgeted at 4%, and administrators are at 3%. At 3%, oh, sorry, that line right there. And then there is an increased PERS cost in this year, and I'll share more information on that later. And also, brand new this year, we have a 0.4% employer-paid cost for organ paid leave. Budget additions, we added 1 FT for a data analyst, that's a general fund position. We added 2 FTE based upon our projected enrollment for general classroom teachers. We added 1 FTE, this is going to be at the middle school and as a counselor. 1 FTE as a student service administrator, and then added $50,000 to the high school budget for Clackamas Community Associates program. This is for the classrooms and textbooks. And then we have a 20% increase for our liability and property insurance. We also have created a special revenue fund for an international program that we are signed up. We're going to have some students going to
Wales, England.
Wales, England. And they will also be, so 2 of our students will be going there and 2 students will be coming here. And then the high school seismic grant, that will be in our capital projects fund. And then we have our Tri-Valley program, which we have budgeted for in the trust and agency fund. And that is the high school secretary and the athletic director oversee those funds. 2024, the changes. We moved 1 FTE for school psychologists to the general fund, from the general fund to the special revenue fund, and that's the Medicaid money that is going to be for. We made staffing adjustments to eliminate a teaching and learning director position and added 2 FTE TOSA positions in the teaching and learning department. And then we moved the 0.63 FTE for nursing from the general fund to the special revenue fund. And reductions that we made, we reduced 0.4 FTE from the office of the superintendent. We reduced a district district office and the operations made 5% budget reductions in their budgets. We reduced 1 FTE from the high school learning specialists, and we reduced all the contracted costs for the CNAs out of the special revenue fund. So the general fund, the beginning fund balance, we're projecting that to be 4.75 million. Our property taxes, we're projecting to be 7.5 million. And then the local and intermediate is 1,275,000. And state school fund, a little more information about this. This is 9.9 billion. We're at the 49, we're at the first year, so the 49 of that. The district share is estimated to be 26.4 million. Oh, I'm sorry, 28.09 million is the correct number. And then 1.12 million of that is transportation grant, and then 310,000 of our common school fund.
Christina, do you want us to hold questions?
No?
Are we feeling pretty confident about 9.9 at this point in time as far as the way it's filtering through the state?
I have not heard of any changes. I know they're still petitioning, but at this time, they're holding strong on their 9.9.
I have heard that the governor, as of a couple days ago, has a new initiative around early child literacy that they're trying to squeeze a few more general fund dollars out of. So 9.9 seems to be where it's at right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down to finish some different initiatives from the governor. But we're lobbying hard for that, against it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And just a little more information, kind of went over this at our Budget 101. We're using our extended ADMW of 3,623. Again, that includes a weight. It's not our actual enrollment. It includes different weights for students in IEPs, students in ESL. Just 1 second.
What's going on? Wait.
While that is going, a question on enrollment. Obviously, looking at the numbers by school, we have a lot of elementary kids coming up.
Yeah.
Where are we planning for that over the next couple of years?
That's a great question, and that's a conversation that we're just getting started with our community, starting first of all with our long-range facility planning committee. Right now, we've purchased, over the couple of years with some of our ESSER funds, 2 portables for 4 additional classrooms at River Mill Elementary. We do anticipate that most of those will be filled with classrooms next year. We have 1 classroom space remaining at Clackamas River, so we can take about 25 more kids at Clackamas River. Long-term, though, our community has to have a conversation about what expansion looks like. And that's the conversation that we're really just engaging in terms of some different options that the district can consider as we move forward together in a growing community. I think you heard, but before I came in, there's going to be more. There's a new development coming with 450 more homes, and those are going to have the price point, which is going to be around $250,000, is going to really encourage young families to move out to Estacada. So that's going to require an additional space, most likely, an additional building, most likely.
So if that's the case, why are we budgeting lower property taxes for next year?
So, yeah, that's okay.
That is
Yeah.
a question that we are going to answer. So we did bump up our property taxes, 500,000. We tend to be conservative because it is not it could come in, and we want to be conservative because we don't want to spend more than what we're receiving. And keep in mind, that is offset by our state school fund. So if we receive more property taxes, we're receiving less state school fund.
But
But we do get the per square foot funds coming in for each of the new houses, but again, not guaranteed.
Right.
And that's about $200,000.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not enough to
So-
build it.
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
budget more for property taxes, we're budgeting less for state school funds. So that number that I gave you for state school fund is assuming that 7.5 million in property taxes. So come December, like, because the property taxes come in November, I have a chance to tell the state, well, we actually receive more, and then that's why we receive more or less later in the year.
Quick question, not that this, I'm just curious. Does the money per square foot, does that also take the amount of money that the state gives you down?
It doesn't,
does not?
nope.
No.
It goes into its own capital construction fund. We can only use that to improve our assets.
Yeah.
Yep,
And that doesn't show up in the tax column, it's an STC.
Correct.
Fee
It's
that
the
comes
STC,
in,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Great
So
question.
It looks like we're up and running again, so why don't we let you go ahead and finish your report and the questions you were gonna answer, and then that way we can move through it all. And if it's something that's really urgent, let me know, but otherwise we'll get through that before we ask more questions.
Great
Okay,
job.
thank you. And I'm still not moving.
We apologize for the technical difficulties. Maybe we'll just give you a hand signal and you can,
You can push the button.
yeah, push the button.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
Here, we kind of just talked about our projected enrollment. You can see our actual enrollment went up quite a lot this year. But we are, at this time, since we're currently doing a population study, but we don't have those numbers, so I was a little bit conservative because they're not actually there yet. So once we get that population study next year, will see that hopefully change. Okay, and then here is, again, our ADMW, and you can see there the different weights. This does include the charter schools numbers in the 23-24. They combine them, both the Estacada and the Summit Learning Center. You can see 2022-23 are a lot lower, and that's because that is just us. And then here's our proposed budget for all funds. And it is an increase of 3.6 million, and this, or 6.07% of our 2023 adopted. And then here's our proposed budget, some highlights. 50% or 35.6 million is our state funding. Our local services, which includes our property taxes, is about 13.9 million or 22%. Our expenditures, instructional services, is 47% of our budget, and 28% is support service, and that's pretty much district office, transportation, maintenance. And then you'll see there the 3,000s, those are our food service. Here's a breakdown of salary and benefits. And these are all in the budget message. And then here is what we're proposing fund by fund, by major function, with a total of 62.5 million. And then just the general fund. The general fund is seeing a 1.6 million increase, or 3.96 compared to the adopted. You can see part of that is in property taxes, 1.7 million in state school fund. And then here, you can see it broken down, the general fund, the majority, 28.4 million, or 68% is state services, or state school fund. And then here it is again, broken down by major object. So salaries and associated are our payroll costs are 57.9%. Purchase service, wanted to point out that includes our sub cost, our charter school payments, and all of our utility costs. And this is page C1 of your proposed budget. And it's it's showing you our budget, our current year budget, we're projecting to end at, and then our proposal for the 2024 budget, and then the changes between. Here's our proposed budget transfers. And this is on page C2. Going to kind of talk a little bit this, and this is one of the questions that came up. We're proposing that I'm going to go to the ads first. We're going to add $50,000 to the food service fund, do a transfer to there, do a 300 add or transfer to the curriculum for the textbook adoption, 140 for our tech replacement to keep all of our Chromebooks up to date and going for our students and for our staff. Turf replacement, this isn't to get us a new turf, this is to maintain and keep our current turf going. We do have to do a major cycle in 10 years, and we want to make sure that we have the funding to do that. The PERS reserve, you could see there, we're recommending taking $250,000, and I'll give more information about that in a little bit later. And then to pay for our biomass boiler, moving $50,000, and then $355,000 from the general fund. So the total transfers are $605,000. And so one of the questions I get was, why is the turf replacement still listed under transferred out? And just to explain, that is to maintain it.
Do you want to?
I understand that's all turf that our district has, not just football turf, correct?
Well, correct, yes. Actually, no, I should say that's not quite. So we know that the softball turf infield is also turf, and that's not included in this. That's a different conversation the district we need to have, because that field is, I think, 15 years old and well past its life cycle. And so we do need to reconcile that in a different way. And then just to clarify too, it doesn't cost us $65,000 a year to maintain the turf. This is going into a savings account. And so then when the life of the football turf field is over in between 10 and 12 years, we will have responsibly saved up to then pay for it, to replace it when that happens.
That's what I wanted to add. Thank
Yep.
you.
Do you have any plans to allow different soccer clubs and things like that to start using the field to generate some income?
Yes, correct. Yep, we do plan for that. Okay. Go ahead.
Our student investment account, this is what we plan on using it, what has been sent to the state for use for our student investment account for next year. Our high school success, this is currently how we're funding our high school success. And then our ESSER, this is our third year. You can see kind of there over in how we're planning on spending out. Majority of it is spent out. We have a very small pot that we are going to use for the final year. Beginning balance history, just kind of wanted to give you an idea of historically where versus where we budgeted versus where we ended up. Okay, and then I'm going to go into some of the questions. One of the questions I received multiple times is, we are receiving $1.6 million more in state school funding. Why are we having to cut $1.1 million? Great question. And unfortunately, as wonderful as 1.6 million is, it is not enough to cover our required expenditure increases, such as our steps for employees, our 3% COLAs, our health insurance increase. And so I kind of give you there a breakdown by major object, where we started or adopted versus where we're proposing. And you could see if we didn't take out that $1 million, we would actually be almost 2.7 over budget. And that's why we had 2.7 increase in expenditures. So that is why. Does that help? Any additional clarification on that?
So just from a formatting standpoint, the Budget Committee, and for public record, the Budget Committee and the board have done an extremely diligent job of reviewing with a fine-tooth comb this proposed budget today. And what we're about ready to go through in this section is really the questions that each member submitted to us individually. And so we thought it was best to, obviously answer these questions so that all could hear, but also that we could make those transparent for the public to also hear as well. So thank you so much for these great questions, and we're gonna take an attempt here in our best to answer and clarify.
The next question we received, what assets were sold in 2021-22, page D, this was an error. It does not impact our proposed budget. It's historical. The line was copied from beginning fund balance to the sold. So we did not sell anything in 21-22. But thank you for finding that. The next one is, where is the SRO budgeted? Is it broken out between different objects? And the person thought they saw it in security services, page 41, and they are correct. That is the exact line where it is, and our contract is just over 80,000 for that, for our portion of it. The next question, which I think we kind of already asked, but I will read it. Current taxes seem to be budgeted very conservatively. Do you think we'll actually receive more? Generally, we do budget revenues more conservatively to keep us spending more than we receive. I did increase it by 500,000. But again, if we do end up receiving more, we will have to, it will reconcile with the state school fund. And the next one is on B10, indicates the ESSER 3 will be read day costs. What kind of cost are these covering? And for this year, it is covering our food service costs. It is not covered by ODE. So for the food that we're buying, and not all the hours, but some of the hours for our staff to work read days in the food service department. The next question is, C1, looking at 22-23 budget to 22-23 projected, how were we off so much in line 4 with local property taxes? And then my answer is page 3. When budgeting property taxes, there is not a given number. We use historical information. So if you want to turn to page 3 to look at that historical information to provide us with a number that we're comfortable. We tend to be conservatives to keep us from spending more than we receive.
Is that a typical swing year over year, 1.2 million, or was this just a really good?
It came in that much higher, 1.2 million higher.
Is that typical?
It's been growing, and that's why I'm trying to figure out what rate it's growing. I haven't mastered that yet, but it is climbing a lot more. So I jumped it up a lot more this year than I typically would.
I would guess, though, yeah, this is abnormal
Yes.
with the growth that we're
Yes.
receiving. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
The next one is line 17, charter school payments. What's the net difference between corresponding revenue and expenditures? And my explanation, and I kind of gave you some information off our state school fund. We are paid $9,599 per ADMW. So Summit's portion of that is estimated to be $12,063,000, which is they have 1,256 ADMW. So, and we're estimated to pay them right now 10 million, so that would give us 2,063,000 is what we're netting off that.
And is that typical? Will that remain that way for?
Yes.
Yeah, we've been netting about
Yep.
just over 2 million. Mhm.
Are you seeing more, like, obviously there was a big drop this year in the charter school. Do you anticipate that again next year as well?
I actually expect it to be pretty steady with where it's at now. You know, during the pandemic and COVID, it had skyrocketed. And then as more public education entities reopened, it did start to fall. But I do think the people who are there now are in it for the long haul. I really do, yeah.
If we didn't dip into PERS reserve, what are our other options? So in my explanation of this, we felt comfortable using the 250 in PERS reserve because of the increase to our PERS costs. So our Tier 1, Tier 2 increased from 14.29% to 15.97%, and our OPSERTs increased from 11.18% to 13.13. The average increase is 1.815, which is approximately 278,000 increase for us. So we felt comfortable using the PERS reserve because that's the purpose that it was there for.
Thank you. What other options did you consider?
Making 200 and
Just more cuts somewhere
cuts
else?
Yeah,
somewhere
I
else.
mean, at the end of the day, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it makes sense, but.
How does the 2022-23 budget column on page C2, page C2, how does the 2022-23 budget column correlate with the 2022-23 adopted graph on B3? So I did my best on this. So C2, the 2023 budget column shows revenues transferred to other funds in the general, out of the general fund, or a general fund expenditure. And the adopted graph on B3 only shows general fund revenue. So you won't see that transfer on page C2 out of the general fund. But if you turn to page B8, you'll see that the interfund transfers is 1% of our proposed expenditures. And in 2022-23, it was 2% of our adopted expenditures. So that's where you'll see those transfers.
That's good.
The next question is our insurance rates are going up across the board. And this is a two-parter question. So what information has been provided for an explanation of why? So last year it was only 5%. So I'm going to answer that question first. And this is what we received. I copied and pasted directly off an email from my insurance agent. This is a statewide increase, and he says, given the volatile nature of our property and liability market, we recommend that you budget for a 20% increase for this year of your PACE expenditures. And that was the information. So the second part of that was, I'm assuming this is, yes, it did increase the 600s. That is why. That's the part. So the next question, which is interesting, given debt service went down significantly from 15 to 7% from the proposed. So debt service covers our debt payments. And so then I have down there broken down our debt schedule for next year and showing you why we budgeted 4.1 million. And just kind of giving you an explanation. GEO bond, that's our bond that we have out. The pension bond, that's our pension side account that we took out a few years to keep out our PERS rates at a lower amount. And the QZAB, that is our biomass there. So our total debt that we are paying for next year is $4,075,000. So that's why that went down, is because our debt payments for next year are going down.
We also worked very hard as a board to remove the buses. We used to, historically, our district used to take loans out to purchase buses. And so now we are debt-free from that perspective, which took us about 5 years to do. And so we're happy to shed that also from debt services. We now buy them outright.
And just in support, Christina, of the insurance stuff, like that is very standard to see right these days. Like
Really?
that's not unusual,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
that's a lot.
Yeah,
It's a lot. It's a lot and it's not uncommon.
yeah.
Will it just be this year though?
Last year it was 5%. This year was a huge amount. I hope it becomes less vital,
I just
but
think that they'll, I mean, if 20% trends to be the norm, there's some huge rethinking to do, even with continuing to dip into the purse.
I know that PACE is doing some due diligence, going outside of the norm to try to see what they can do to make that not be a continuation for us.
Do you have a choice, or does the state mandate the healthcare option?
We have a choice.
We do, and I can tell you out of the state of Oregon, I think there's 3 school districts, the 3 big school districts that are privately insured. Rest of them go with the state.
But different, our medical insurance and those types of things, employees do have a choice, and we, the district, do have a choice of 4 or 5 different providers. But for asset liability coverage, this is that 20%, and that's the state one, yep.
And so, and that increase is statewide, all the schools, not
Correct.
simply because your school is older.
No,
We just had a
Yeah.
whole gym that had to be replaced.
Yeah.
It had
Just statewide
nothing to
20%
do with
or-
any of our claims, anything. We are actually doing really good as a school district. It is a statewide increase.
As we can predict, lawsuits are up
Yes.
across the board, and I think this is what that represents, yeah.
The next question is, where is the cost of the turf field accounted for? It is not in the budget because it is currently still in this fiscal year. We purchased it out of this year. So I gave you our capital projects, our board report, to show you where that cost is, and you can see it right there. I can't read that number, 1.8 million. And so that, you will see it in next year's budget as a past expenditure, but it is in our current, and we don't show projected in our capital projects. So it is not, you cannot see it in our budget document, but I thought it was important for you to know that.
I also think it's important, just for public statement, that we did not use any general fund dollars on the turf field project. This was over a decade of savings from the capital construction and the SSD, that dollar per square foot or whatever it was. Over time, we saved the money, and that's what we utilized for that facility improvement. So we did not take money out of the classroom in order to build this. This was set aside funds, so it was never budgeted with general money.
Which was earmarked for specific
That's,
purpose.
it's literally
So-
for asset improvements, yes.
And are you, I mean, with knowing costs of everything, increasing the 65,000 that we're putting in to project, very comfortable that that's gonna cover things where you're able to then do things debt-free when it's time to.
That's correct,
Do it?
yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Great.
The other thing that doesn't show up is the lack of watering that's required.
Yes.
yeah.
So historically has been,
And mowing.
yeah,
and
and yes.
Utilities are those problems.
different
Yeah.
some of that, not,
Yeah.
not $65,000 in savings, but there's a savings.
There's quite a
there,
bit.
right? It adds
Yeah.
up, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Plant operator thanks you for that.
Yes.
The biggest thing for me is watching athletes play on there.
Yes.
The lack of injury that you're looking at having on
Yes.
that as opposed to what was there
Yeah.
before is
Well-
worth every penny.
And the hours used, right.
Yeah.
I mean, the lights are on there every single night, 6 days a
That's
week right
awesome.
now. And as we're a growing community and we're short on field space, we've been using that every single day, which we never used to be able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome.
So you guys gave great questions, a wide variety, and I am done answering, I believe, all of your questions, I hope.
Okay, thank you.
Unless you have others.
Yeah, unless there's
And then,
any others.
yes, thank you, Christina. Are there other questions that the budget committee would like to ask, or things that came up during the presentation that you'd like to comment on or ask about?
Presiding Officer Wagner, I have a question.
Okay.
There's an experience adjustment on
Nice.
for the teachers. And I was just wondering, because years ago, we elected to bring our teachers in at step 4 or 5 versus step 1, is that right? On the salary scale?
Correct. Yes, we just lopped off the salary scale. We didn't pay them at 4, we just knocked off 1, 2, or 3. So the old 4 was the new 1. Yes,
Okay.
yep.
I was just wondering if there's any tricky math that can be done. It doesn't really amount to much, but if the experience is actually based on the years in seat, not the years on the salary scale, right?
Correct.
It's the years in seat. And I did have a question that came from the Budget 101 that I did research. And the amount that we're paid per student is not consistent across every school district. So the years of experience is a factor that changes that. And unfortunately, in Clackamas County, we are one of the lowest.
Well, I don't know if that's unfortunately.
Well, not unfortunately, money-wise, in my money-wise, not in, sorry the way I said that, but
Yeah.
yes, you're right.
But the reality is, and I'm just making sure I understand this, so the teacher experience rating could increase the amount of money that we're receiving from the state.
Correct.
But then we're just paying the teachers
Yes,
more.
you're
So
correct.
it's really no extra money in our
So
budget.
you guys are right.
And then with our property taxes too, our property taxes go up, it's not any benefit, it just means the state pays us less. So
Correct.
one thing way or another, we've got this formula, we
Correct.
get this amount of money.
Yes.
Where it comes from is only thing being determined.
And that's part of the budget
Very well
magic,
said.
right, is that those things are locked in, and there isn't anything we can do about those ones, right? And so that's where we can budget conservatively on property taxes, just to make sure we don't overcommit expenses. But if that comes in higher, right, it changes from the other side, and it's not based on what we budget, it's based on actuals, but we budget based on what we anticipate it's gonna be from a little bit of a conservative
But if it comes in lower, we get more money from the state,
That's
correct?
right.
So one, I mean,
standpoint.
Yes.
but it's,
Yep.
Yeah.
You're saying it just right.
It washes.
It kinda
it
is,
just wash, there you go,
it
it
kinda
just
is what
washes.
it is.
It just seems, I think most people don't realize that.
yep.
No.
It's good for transparency, though, for you to do a reasonable,
Yes.
reasonably expected,
Yes.
just so that it is broken out like
I
that.
agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
How does our extended ADM compare to the rest of the Clackamas County schools?
The extended ADM,
Yeah,
I,
because that factors in, teens with pregnancy and special education and
Correct. Yeah.
ESL
It's,
and all that.
we get more money than most, school districts in Clackamas County with our weighting. We're 66% students in poverty. We're 18% special education, identified in special education. Lake Oswego is 2% students in poverty. And so they get less based on that weighting than we do. But Colton can be, a lot of southeast Clackamas County is similar to us.
I have a couple comments and questions. First, Christina, excellent job. It was nice to get it a week early, and I apologize, I did not send in questions. It's been kind of crazy. And then also, just, I don't know if people realize this, but your 5% reduction in administrative overhead is a huge accomplishment. So
Thank you.
kudos to you and the team for
Thank
that, because that is a very difficult thing in this day and age to accomplish. So
Yeah.
very well done on that. My question is kind of going back to the enrollment projections. So like looking at this year on C3, like looking at the amount of fifth graders going into the middle school compared to this year's sixth graders is not a huge difference, but then the next year, we have almost an entire classroom size.
Yeah.
And so, just curious if that's something you're looking for next year's budget, or do you guys try to plan ahead to bring teachers on board for next school year in anticipation of the one after that being even larger?
Yeah, so we do make that budget decision right now. So in this reflects what we project the enrollment will be for next year at each building. So as we create, at the middle school and high school, we do a 30 student to 1 FTE ratio. And so we included those fifth graders coming into the middle school, and we excluded this year's eighth graders going into the high school as we determine what the middle school's FTE is going to be. So we do reflect on actuals when it comes to that.
Okay, excellent. And then my next question is also salary based on F1. You have the general fund proposed expenditures by budget object. So if I'm looking at the total salaries, just the overall line item, we budgeted 13.7 this year, we landed at 14.6, so, and that, like, the 13.7 was already $1 million increase over the prior year. We're only budgeting for $1 million increase next year over this year's actual. Are we concerned that that number is conservative?
So when we budgeted, we still were in negotiations with both OSEA and teachers, and both of them came in higher than what we budgeted. So this year, we already have set contracts with teachers and administrators, so OSEA is the one, so that's why it's the 3% right now is a status quo kind of thing. So I feel more comfortable about it, but we're in the middle of negotiations, so we can only do what information we have at the time. But I'm pretty sure we won't be as huge a difference because there's only classified compared to teachers and classified.
And I would add to that too, being part of the negotiations last year, right? So the district did a phenomenal job negotiating on those steps. The asks across the state were astronomical.
Yeah.
From an increase standpoint. And so when you look at surrounding districts, I believe the district did a supreme job of finding some middle ground, finding some way to take care of the teachers, but also keep those at a reasonable rate so that we could continue to offer the services that we offer. So it was a very long process, and we started here before we finally got to here, and feel very good about where we landed as again, as compared to some surrounding districts that had an even more significant jump in that area.
Sure. I was more making sure I'm a big fan of the teachers in this district. Since last year, I now have 3 kiddos in the district. And
Yeah, we've got
teachers have
amazing
been
teachers.
We do.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
It's great, so I just want to make sure we're keeping them.
Yes,
Happy.
yep, and giving them their promised cost of living increases and their percentages. Yep.
All right, do we have anybody else that has questions? Am I missing anybody?
Director Berman, any questions from you? Sorry.
Not at this time, thank you.
Any other kind of informational requests that might require a little more research you're wondering about? I feel like having this ahead of time was so helpful, so we could really dig through it.
Yeah, really, really nice. Thank you very much.
All right, if there's no more questions here, everybody, okay, let's go on to public comments. Do we have anybody from the public here?
No.
Okay. All right. Then we're on to budget committee deliberations. And I think the questions are there any, if there's more questions that come up, but amongst us, do we feel like we need more information? Do we need more time? Are we ready to approve this tonight? Do we want to have a second meeting? Or do you think that you'll have more questions based on what we've learned tonight? What are some recommendations from the committee?
I don't have anything to deliver.
I don't either.
Anticipate having anything else come up.
I don't think so either.
I don't.
Okay. What the rest of our?
Yeah.
You here? Okay.
Board?
In that case, I guess I will move on to number 9, and see if we have a motion to approve the budget. Unless it doesn't sound like we want to recess. Exhibit A, this must be this, Exhibit A is provided so that, are those 3 different? I haven't read them yet.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So we start with 1 and move through all 3 of them?
Do all 3 of them.
Okay, one at a time, vote on each one.
You can do all 3 of them at one time.
Okay. All right, so if you look at Exhibit A, if anybody wants to read through the motions and make those, we'll let you do that.
Does it need to be one of us to do it?
Ralph isn't here with us, so somebody
I
else.
know.
Not in person.
He was good at it.
I'll read it.
Thank you.
Be it moved that the Budget Committee of Estacada School District hereby approves the 2023-24 proposed budget in the sum of $62,547,157. Be it moved that the requirements for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and for the purposes shown below, are hereby approved to be approbated
approbated, provided however, that the sum of the approbations is limited to the available resources. Be it moved, a tax rate of $4.1476 per 1,000 of assessed value in support of the general fund, and two, a tax amount of $2,597,575 in support of the debt service fund.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion on this?
Great job, Jody.
Yes, thank you for
I
reading this.
just want to call out again, Christina, I really appreciate the format. I found it very easy to follow. It was really helpful having it beforehand. Did a very, very nice job. Thank you.
I second that.
I would also share that from a number of questions and quality of questions, I really
Yes.
appreciate those. So, when we get the quality of questions that we have, it shows that we're taking the time, we're reading the materials, we're digging into it, and we're really trying to understand it. So I really appreciate that. Whomever, submitted those questions, I appreciate it very much.
Okay. I guess we'll call for a vote then. All in favor? Say aye.
And Director Berman?
Director Berman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Let's see. All right, then in that case, we will adjourn the meeting because we do not need to schedule another one. Okay. Do I hand it back to you or just
I
adjourn?
don't know, I think, do you
You
hand it
can
back
just
to me?
adjourn the meeting.
You can just adjourn, you want me to bang the gavel for you?
Nice job. Yay.